Good morning, everyone. My name is Dan Ervin. I work for a company called Various, and we have been working with USGS and the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network for a little bit more than 2 years, developing applications to bring the product they're creating out to various industries, users, and municipalities, and essentially providing a bridge between the uses that can be brainstormed and conceived and the product produced by USGS. For the last year, we've been concentrating on municipal applications, mostly water and sewer systems. We've developed a pretty sophisticated and pretty robust program now to get users through the planning pilot process and then implementation phase. Could you next mouse? Why schools? That's a picture of a school in Chile. I think all of us that have kids know the significance of the school industry and the importance to be able to protect that. Next. Next mouse.
It's coming as well.
There we go. Okay. This is kind of a repeat of the architecture slide that that Doug showed. And basically, there's a lot of infrastructure already developed with USGS and the universities. And that now is ready to go. It's in place. That generally results in a desktop application for a warning. So if you were to become a pilot user today, you would get a username and a program, and on your desktop, a warning would appear. And while that's a pretty sophisticated product, it may not be directly usable for what you might want to do with the warning signal. And I'll describe what I mean by that in just a slide or two. And so what we're providing essentially is the missing link, next mouse, between the scientists, the technology, and the innovative work that have been accomplished by USGS and the partner universities, and those are the products shown on the left side of the screen there. And then the uses and the applications that might be possible, and the topic today is in schools. What might you do with that early warning? And what we're doing is we have both the engineering technology and a product that bridges the gap between those two things. Next mouse. And we are basically doing it this way. So if you think of the USGS alarm signal as being the block of product there on the far left, and your potential application, whether that application is you're taking the alarm to a computer, you're taking the alarm to a PA system, you're taking the alarm to an automatic operation, we have two products that actually make that connection. The first of them is an internet link, which ties your use into the servers at partner universities and USGS, and also a product, a programmable logic controller, which is really just a hardened industrial computer in a case that would go at your facility. And that essentially is a language converter, which takes the alarm signal and converts it into the type of signal or the type of product that you can use directly. Next mouse. And I know in the school industry, there's a very tried and true series of processes and actions that we take in response to an earthquake, namely duck, cover, and hold. But what earthquake early warning does, and now the link back to the earthquake early warning network does, next mouse, is essentially let you ask and have a meaningful solution to the answer. If you had an earthquake warning, could you do something better? And I think the entire topic of today's symposium is exactly this. This represents a paradigm shift in the industry and lets us think about and then realistically consider things that we had never been able to do before, but which may turn out to have great value. Next mouse. And some of those things might include, and there are no one-size-fits-all solutions in, I think, any of the users that are potentially tied into the early warning network, and schools will certainly be in that category. What works best for you and what's most beneficial to you may change on a district by district basis and may change on a school by school basis. But some of the low-hanging fruit here, I've summarized just with this list of 5 things. And the first of those is organizing equipment. So if you had early warning, what could you do to prepare for that? Even if that's only a couple seconds, but it could be a couple of minutes. Would you, for example, in your classrooms have an emergency kit, which might include a radio and water and food and lights, whatever, that's in a bag, and the teacher grabs that before she ducks, covers, and holds so that she has at least some additional resources and some additional equipment or her at their disposal following a quake. It may also be, do you want to open school doors? Is somebody designated to open the exterior doors at the hallway so that if the building gets racked and the doors won't move, that they're at least in an open position for evacuation? Now, there may be hundreds of items in that category on organizing equipment, but we now have the capability to get enough warning to be able to do that. Second potential range of actions is to isolate hazards. And this may be a gas main supply to an entire school complex. It may be gas supply to a chemistry lab. But being able to close an automatic valve that responds not by manual action, but automatically in response to the earthquake, there are a whole range of possibilities under this heading. If your school has a pool, evacuate the pool. I don't know if any of you have seen videos of what happens in pools during sizable earthquakes, but it's a very dramatic thing. And getting staff and students out of a pool and away from the water would be very beneficial. Fourth thing, shut off power. Now this could be isolated, where you have a particularly vulnerable piece of equipment and you want to kill the power to it, or it could be to the entire school. You know, experience with large earthquakes around the world is the fires that result as a result of the earthquakes are oftentimes the most damaging and the most lethal following the earthquake, not necessarily the shaking, but the fires that result, which are caused generally by the fact that we have sources of ignition and now we create shorts with the violent shaking. And we're doing this in a widespread basis in the water industry, for example, where before an earthquake comes, we shut off all the pumps on a treatment plant or a well, a pump station, and then we put that facility to sleep by actually disconnecting the power. Now, this may or may not be a good idea in your particular instance, but we can do this automatically in a very short period of time so that there aren't any sources of ignition or fewer sources of ignition following an earthquake. And lastly, simply evacuate unsafe zones. So whether this is maintenance staff on scaffolding, it's a building that is particularly vulnerable and may come down. You know, again, no one-size-fits-all solution here, but just getting people away from areas that you know are unsafe. Next mouse. And in addition to those actions, there are now policies that need to occur with those actions that our industry really has never had to think about before. And I'm just going to go through this very briefly. Embedded in the earthquake alarm is an estimate of how large the earthquake is going to be. And some of those actions that I just talked about may be dependent upon the size of the earthquake. You may want to implement some of them on a larger quake and not on a smaller quake, et cetera. So that's an important element to consider and to be thoughtful about on when and in what circumstances do you take the potential actions that we've identified. Secondly, when are those actions automatic and when are they manual? For example, do you let the alarm disconnect power to a school, or do you alert operating staff and they make the decision about whether to disconnect power? Facility shutdown, a related item. When do you stop something? Does that happen automatically? Does that happen manually in response to the alarm? Do you shut off power? How secure does the system need to be? In other words, does this connection expose you to a potential cybersecurity threat? And how do we configure that so that that does not compromise other district or school resources? So basically what Various is doing is we now have a fairly competent program of identifying these potential actions. We do that in combination with your staff. We brainstorm and help you through the policies related to each one of those actions. And then we embed the capability to follow through on those two things in a piece of hardware and the device connection that connects either your district or your school to the USGS ShakeAlert alarm. And with that, I'm done. Mouse, thank you for the skillful slide sorting there.
Perfect. Thank you, Dan. And just for clarity, the official protective action messaging is drop, cover, and hold on. Just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Right.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate the details. There's contact information up there for Dan and for Bill. So maybe we'll leave that up here during the break. So we're going to take